Something was wrong with the way Dr. Patricia looked at me during my last day at Millbrook Family Medical Center. My family doctor of 15 years had tears in her eyes, but not the kind you'd expect when a loyal employee retires. "Kathy," she said quietly, glancing toward Dr. Stone's office, "this isn't right. You know that, don't you?" I'd worked as a receptionist at this clinic for 30 years. 30 years of greeting patients with a smile, scheduling appointments, and knowing everyone's medical history by heart. I knew Mrs. Henderson's arthritis flared every September. I knew young Tommy Mills was scared of needles. I knew which patients needed extra time and which ones just needed someone to listen. But according to Dr. Stone, I was now redundant. "Budget cuts," he'd said 2 weeks ago, not quite meeting my eyes. "We're streamlining operations, going digital. You understand?" I understood, all right. I understood that at 69, with my husband Bobby gone 5 years now, I was suddenly too old, too slow, too expensive to keep around. The worst part? When I told my son David about losing my job, his wife Jessica actually smiled. "Good luck finding work at your age, Kathy," she'd laughed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Maybe it's time to consider Millbrook Senior Living. They have lovely rooms." David had just nodded along, like he always did when Jessica spoke. My own son, looking at me like I was already dead weight. But Dr. Patricia's reaction was different. She'd been watching everything unfold with increasing concern. And that morning, as I packed my personal items from the reception desk, she pulled me aside. "Kathy, I need you to know something," she whispered urgently. "Your dismissal, it wasn't Dr. Stone's idea." My hands froze on my coffee mug, the one Tyler had made me in art class with "World's Best Grandma" painted in crooked letters. "What do you mean?" "Someone's been calling the clinic, pressuring Dr. Stone, making suggestions about your competency." The room seemed to tilt. "Who?" Dr. Patricia glanced around nervously. "I think you need to know what's really been happening here, what I've been hearing in the doctor's lounge, but not here, not now." She pressed a piece of paper into my hand. "Meet me tomorrow, Rosewood Cafe, 2 p.m. There are things you need to hear." As I walked out of the clinic for the last time, patients stopping to hug me goodbye, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. The same feeling I'd had when Bobby was hiding his cancer diagnosis from me. The same feeling I'd had when David started dating Jessica. Something was very, very wrong. And tomorrow, I was going to find out exactly what. Rosewood Cafe had been Bobby's and my place for 25 years. Every Friday night, we'd share a piece of their famous apple pie and talk about our week. Now I sat alone in our usual booth, watching Dr. Patricia hurry through the door, her face drawn with worry. "Kathy, thank you for coming," she said, sliding across from me. "I've been losing sleep over this." Dr. Patricia had always been different from Dr. Stone. Where he saw dollar signs, she saw people. Where he rushed, she listened. In 15 years, I'd watched her fight for her patients, argue with insurance companies, and stay late to comfort worried families. "What's really going on, Patricia?" I asked, using her first name for the first time ever. She took a deep breath. 3 weeks ago, your son David called the clinic. Not for an appointment, for a consultation about you. My coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "About me?" He told Dr. Stone he was concerned about your memory, your ability to handle complex tasks. He suggested that keeping you on was becoming a liability issue. The words hit like physical blows. My memory? I know every patient file by heart. I know that. We all know that. But David was very convincing. He mentioned incidents at home, confusion, forgetfulness, safety concerns. That's not true. None of that's true. Patricia leaned forward. "I know, Kathy. I've worked with you for 15 years. Your mind is sharp as a tack, but David didn't stop there." She pulled out her phone and showed me a voicemail transcript. He called again last week. This time, he mentioned legal liability if the clinic continued employing someone with early cognitive decline in a position of trust. I stared at the words, my vision blurring. My own son, my only child. "There's more," Patricia continued gently. "Jessica called twice. Once to ask about the clinic's insurance policies regarding elderly employees. Once to suggest that family was ready to step in when you needed care." "Care?" My voice cracked. I don't need care. I need my job. They painted a picture, Kathy. A loving family concerned about an aging mother who was becoming a burden to herself and others. The cafe seemed to spin around me. 30 years of perfect attendance. 30 years of letters from grateful patients. 30 years of Dr. Stone himself praising my reliability. All destroyed by my own family. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Patricia's jaw tightened. Because it's wrong. Because I've watched you work through your husband's death, never missing a day. Because you know Mrs. Peterson's grandchildren's names and Mr. Rodriguez's medication schedule better than he does. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. And because last Friday, I overheard Jessica on the phone in the parking lot. She was talking to someone about moving things along and the house situation. The house situation? She was discussing property values on your street, Kathy. How much your house might sell for. The apple pie we used to share here tasted like ashes in my memory. My son and daughter-in-law hadn't just taken my job. They were planning to take my home. What am I supposed to do? I asked, feeling smaller than I had since Bobby's funeral. Dr. E. Patricia's eyes flashed with something I'd never seen before, pure anger. We're going to fight back, she said firmly, because I know exactly what they're doing and I know exactly how to stop them. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Kathy, what if I told you that everything they've done, the phone calls, the false claims, the pressure on Dr. Stone, what if I told you I have records of all of it? Records? My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone in Rosewood Cafe could hear it. Dr. Patricia nodded grimly. I'm required to document all communications regarding staff changes, every phone call, every meeting, every concern raised about employees. It's liability protection for the clinic. She pulled out a small folder. I have transcripts of David's calls, Jessica's inquiries, and most importantly, Dr. Stone's notes about the pressure he was receiving. My hands shook as she slid the folder across the table. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it. Your family orchestrated your dismissal, Kathy. This wasn't budget cuts or digital streamlining. This was deliberate. I opened the folder and saw David's words in black and white. Mother is becoming increasingly confused and forgetful. Family is concerned about her handling patient information and clinic responsibilities. Below that, Jessica's inquiry. What are the clinic's policies regarding employee safety and cognitive decline? We want to ensure everyone's protection. They made me sound... I couldn't finish the sentence. Incompetent. Dangerous even. Patricia's voice was steel. And Dr. Stone, God help him, fell for it completely. The betrayal cut deeper than losing Bobby. At least with death, you know it wasn't personal. This was my own blood, systematically destroying my reputation and my livelihood. Why would they do this? I whispered. Patricia hesitated, then pulled out her phone. After I heard Jessica's parking lot conversation, I did some research. Public records, property values, that sort of thing. She showed me a real estate website. Your house, Kathy, on Maple Street. Do you know what it's worth now? I squinted at the screen. $240,000. That's the conservative estimate. And do you know what Millbrook Senior Living costs per month? I shook my head. $3,200 for a basic room. The math hit me like a truck. My house would pay for exactly 6 years at that place if I lived that long. After that, they want me gone, I said, the truth finally settling in. They want the house, and they want me warehoused somewhere I can't cause them embarrassment. Exactly. Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. Kathy, there's something else. Something that happened today. What now? Dr. Stone just texted me. Apparently, David called this morning asking about your medical records. Specifically any documentation of memory issues or cognitive decline. My medical records? He claimed he needed them for your application to Millbrook Senior Living. Said you were having trouble filling out the forms yourself. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. I haven't applied anywhere. I know. That's what makes this so dangerous. Patricia leaned forward urgently. Kathy, they're not just trying to take your independence. They're building a case that you're not competent to make your own decisions. The words hung between us like a death sentence. Incompetent, unfit, unable to care for myself. What happens if they succeed? Guardianship. David becomes your legal guardian. He controls your finances, your medical decisions, your living situation. Everything. I thought about Tyler's crooked-lettered coffee mug still sitting in my kitchen. About Emma, who still hugged me tight when her parents weren't watching. About the garden Bobby and I had planted, now in full autumn bloom. About 30 years of patients who trusted me with their lives. No, I said quietly. No. I looked up at Patricia, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something besides hurt and confusion. I felt angry. No, they're not taking my life away. Not without a fight. Patricia smiled for the first time since this conversation started. Good, because I have an idea about how we can fight back. But first, we need to talk to someone who specializes in this kind of family manipulation. Who? Someone who's seen it all before, someone who knows exactly how these schemes work. She gathered her papers. Kathy, how do you feel about involving a lawyer? James Mitchell's office sat above the old hardware store on Main Street, the kind of place where small-town justice actually meant something. Dr. Patricia had arranged the meeting for the next day, and now I sat across from a man who'd spent 20 years fighting for people like me. Mrs. Morrison, he said after hearing my story, his expression growing darker with each detail. This is worse than you think. Worse how? What your son and daughter-in-law are doing, it's called financial abuse of the elderly, and it's more common than you'd imagine. He pulled out a legal pad covered in notes, but they're being very sophisticated about it. Dr. Patricia shifted in her chair beside me. How sophisticated? The fake competency concerns, the medical record requests, the nursing home applications you didn't authorize. These are all steps in a well-planned guardianship strategy. My blood ran cold. Guardianship? If David can prove to a court that you're not competent to handle your own affairs, he becomes your legal guardian. Your house, your savings, your decisions, all under his control. But I'm perfectly fine. I know that. You know that. But the system doesn't know that. All they'll see is a concerned son with documentation of your decline and professional recommendations supporting his claims. James pulled out another folder. I had my assistant do some research yesterday. Did you know that David took out a second mortgage on his house 6 months ago? The room seemed to tilt. What? $85,000. And according to his credit report, he's already behind on payments. Dr. Patricia leaned forward. That's why they're rushing this. Exactly. David needs money fast, and your house is his solution. James spread several documents across his desk. But here's what really concerns me. Last week, someone using David's name contacted 3 different assisted living facilities asking about immediate placement for a relative with advancing dementia. Dementia? I could barely get the word out. He's not just planning to take your house, Mrs. Morrison. He's planning to have you declared incompetent and institutionalized. The walls of the office seemed to close in. My own son, planning to lock me away like I was already dead. What can we do? Dr. Patricia asked. James tapped his pen thoughtfully. The good news is that Dr. Hendricks documented everything. The bad news is that David has been very careful to cover his tracks legally. What do you mean? All his phone calls to the clinic, framed as loving concern, the medical record requests, helping Mom with her applications, the nursing home inquiries, planning for the future? I felt sick. So he's going to get away with it? Not necessarily. James pulled out his phone. There's something called elder abuse, and what David's doing qualifies. But we need to be strategic about how we fight back. Strategic how? We need to catch him in the act, get him to admit what he's really doing. James looked at Dr. Patricia. You mentioned Jessica had a conversation about property values? In the clinic parking lot, yes. She didn't know I was listening. Was anyone else there? Any witnesses? Dr. Patricia thought for a moment. Actually, yes. Susan Torres. She's another receptionist. She was leaving at the same time. James made a note. Good. We need to talk to her. He turned back to me. Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something, and it might be painful. What? How much contact do you have with your grandchildren, Emma and Tyler? Not as much as I used to. David and Jessica have been limiting my visits. Since when? I thought back. About 3 months ago. They said I was overstimulating the kids, that they needed space. James and Dr. Patricia exchanged a look. What? I demanded. Isolation, James said quietly. They're cutting you off from potential allies, people who could testify to your competence. The full scope of their plan was becoming clear. It wasn't just about the money or the house. They were systematically destroying my support network, my reputation, my very identity. How long do we have? I asked. James consulted his calendar. If David files for emergency guardianship citing immediate safety concerns, he could have a hearing within 2 weeks. 2 weeks? But here's what they don't know, he said, with the first smile I'd seen from him. We're going to be ready for them. That evening, I sat in my living room staring at Bobby's old recliner, trying to process everything James Mitchell had told me. 2 weeks. David could take everything away from me in 2 weeks. The doorbell rang, and I found Maggie Kelly on my front porch with a casserole dish and a determined expression. "Kathy Morrison, you look like hell," she announced, pushing past me into the kitchen. "And don't you dare tell me you're fine." Maggie had been my neighbor for 15 years. At 73, she was fiercer than women half her age and had opinions about everything. If I was going to tell anyone the truth, it would be her. "Maggie, I need to tell you something. About David and Jessica. About time." She set down the casserole and turned to face me. "I've been watching those two for months, wondering when you'd see what the rest of us already knew." "What do you mean, the rest of us?" "Honey, the whole neighborhood knows something's wrong. Jessica driving by at weird hours, taking pictures of your house. David asking Harold Bishop about your episodes none of us have ever seen." My legs felt weak. "They've been talking to the neighbors?" "Oh, sweetheart." Maggie guided me to a chair. "They've been building a case against you all over this neighborhood." The betrayal kept getting deeper. "What did they say?" "That you've been having memory problems. That you left the stove on overnight. That you forgot Emma's birthday." Maggie's eyes flashed. "All lies, of course. I see you every day, Kathy. Your mind is sharp as mine." Did anyone believe them? Harold was concerned at first. You know how he worries. But Linda Washington shut that down real quick. Linda? She told David exactly what she thought of sons who spread rumors about their mothers. Maggie smiled grimly. In front of half the church congregation. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Linda Washington didn't hold back when she had something to say. "Maggie, there's more." And I told her everything. The job, the medical records, the guardianship plan. By the time I finished, Maggie's face was red with fury. "Those scheming little—" She caught herself. "Kathy, this is war." "I know. James Mitchell is helping, and Dr. Patricia has evidence, but nothing. You're not fighting this alone." Maggie pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Linda, and Harold, and Susan from the clinic, and anyone else who's watched you be the best neighbor, friend, and grandmother in this whole town." "Maggie, you don't have to—" "The hell I don't. You think we're going to let some greedy kids destroy one of our own?" Within an hour, my living room was full. Linda Washington sat on the couch, her church organizing energy focused like a laser. Harold Bishop occupied Bobby's old chair, his postal worker instincts for detail already kicking in. Susan Torres had driven over after her clinic shift, still in her scrubs. "This is exactly what happened to my cousin in Pittsburgh," Linda said after hearing the full story. Her son had her declared incompetent and sold her house while she was in the hospital. "What happened to her?" I asked. "She's still fighting it 3 years later. Lost everything." The room fell silent. Harold cleared his throat. "What can we do?" "Document everything," Susan said immediately. "Every conversation, every interaction. I've been keeping notes about David's calls to the clinic anyway." "I'll talk to people at church," Linda added. "Get them ready to testify about Kathy's involvement in community activities." "And I'll coordinate with the neighbors," Maggie declared. "Anyone who's been approached by David or Jessica, anyone who's witnessed their lies." Harold leaned forward. "Kathy, what about the grandkids, Emma and Tyler?" My heart clenched. "They've been keeping them away from me." "For how long?" 3 months. Maybe more." "That's isolation," Susan said grimly. "My aunt went through the same thing. Cut off from family who might speak up for her." Linda's eyes narrowed. "What if we arranged a way for you to see them, without David and Jessica knowing?" "How?" "Emma's in the church youth group. Tyler plays Little League at the park." Linda pulled out her phone. "There are ways to have accidental encounters." For the first time in weeks, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. "You'd all do this for me?" Maggie reached over and squeezed my hand. Honey, you held vigil at the hospital when Harold had his heart attack. You organized meals for my family when my daughter was going through her divorce. You've been there for every one of us. Now it's our turn to be there for you," Linda added firmly. Harold nodded. David and Jessica think they're dealing with a helpless old woman. They have no idea what they're really up against. Linda's plan worked perfectly. Saturday afternoon, while David and Jessica were at some real estate seminar, Emma was at youth group practice in the church basement. I accidentally arrived early to help Linda with the newsletter mailings. Emma's face lit up when she saw me. "Grandma Kathy." She ran over and hugged me tight, the first real hug I'd had in months. "Hey, sweetheart, I've missed you so much." Linda discreetly moved to the other side of the room, giving us space while keeping watch. "I've missed you too." Emma's voice was small, uncertain. "Mom and Dad said you've been sick." My heart broke. "Sick how?" "They said you're forgetting things, that you might not remember us sometimes." She looked up at me with worried 14-year-old eyes. "But you seem fine to me." "I am fine, Emma. What else did they tell you?" Emma glanced around nervously, then lowered her voice. "They said we can't visit you anymore because it makes your condition worse, that seeing us confuses you." "Emma, listen to me very carefully. I am not confused. I am not sick. And seeing you never makes anything worse. It makes everything better." Tears filled her eyes. "I knew something was wrong. You've never forgotten anything important. Ever." "What do you mean?" "Last month, when Dad said you forgot my birthday, you didn't forget. You called me that morning before school and sang the birthday song. You even remembered that I wanted the purple jacket from the mall." A chill ran down my spine. "Your dad said I forgot? He told everyone at dinner that night. Mom said it was proof that that your mind is going. Emma, have you ever seen me confused? Ever?" She shook her head firmly. "Never. And neither has Tyler. He asks about you all the time." "What does he ask?" "Why you don't come over anymore. Why Mom and Dad get angry when he talks about you." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "He heard them fighting about you last week." "Fighting about what?" Emma looked around again, making sure Linda was still across the room. "Dad was yelling about money, about how they can't wait much longer. Mom said something about the house and how this has to happen soon." The pieces clicked into place. They weren't just planning to take my house. They were behind schedule. "Emma, I need to ask you something important. Has anyone ever asked you or Tyler about my behavior? About whether I seem confused or forgetful?" "Actually, yes. This woman came to school last month. She said she was from social services, checking on families in the district." "What kind of questions?" "About home life, about our grandparents, about whether anyone in our family needed special help." Emma frowned. "She asked a lot of questions about you specifically." "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that you're the smartest person I know, that you help me with math homework and remember all my friends' names." Emma's voice got stronger. "Tyler told her you taught him to cook and that you never forget anything important." Relief flooded through me. My grandchildren had unknowingly been my character witnesses. "Emma, there's something else I need to tell you. Your parents have been lying to people about me." I figured. She sounded older than her 14 years. "The stories don't make sense. Like when Dad told Aunt Sarah you'd left the stove on all night, but you don't even use the stove after dinner. You always clean everything right away. You notice that?" "Tyler and I notice everything, Grandma. We're not stupid." Linda caught my eye and tapped her watch. Emma's ride would be here soon. "Emma, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If anyone asks you more questions about me, anyone at all, I need you to tell the truth. About my memory, about my cooking, about how I really act when we're together." "Of course." "And Emma, this conversation stays between us for now. Can you do that?" She nodded solemnly. "Are you in trouble, Grandma?" "I might be, but I'm not giving up without a fight." Emma hugged me again, fiercer this time. "Good, because Tyler and I need you. Real you, not some made-up sick version." As her ride pulled up, Emma turned back to me. "Grandma? Whatever Mom and Dad are planning, Tyler and I are on your side, always." Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Certainty. My grandchildren knew the truth about who I was. And if this went to court, If David tried to paint me as a confused old woman who didn't even know her own grandkids, well, Emma and Tyler had just given me the most powerful weapons of all, their honest voices and their unconditional love. James Mitchell was going to be very interested in what I'd learned today. Sunday dinner had been our family tradition for 5 years, ever since Bobby died. Today, I was hosting one last time, but not for the reasons David and Jessica expected. James Mitchell had coached me on what to say, what to ask, how to get them talking. Dr. Patricia had provided a recording device small enough to hide in the sugar bowl on the dining room table. Harold and Maggie were working in the yard next door, close enough to witness whatever happened. "Smells good in here, Mom," David said as he and Jessica settled into their usual seats. The same seats where they'd told me about Emma's first steps, Tyler's Little League victories, all the family moments that used to matter. "I made your favorite," I replied, setting down the pot roast. "Figured it might be one of our last Sunday dinners." Jessica looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "Well, with me moving to Millbrook Senior Living and all?" The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. "Moving?" David's voice was carefully neutral. "Mom, we've talked about looking into places, but—" "Oh, I know all about the applications you filled out for me," I said pleasantly, passing the mashed potatoes. "The ones where you described my advancing dementia." Jessica's fork clattered against her plate. "Mom, I think you're confused." "Am I?" I met his eyes directly. "Because I had an interesting conversation with Dr. Patricia this week about the phone calls you made to the clinic, about your concerns regarding my competency." David's face went pale. We were worried about you." "Worried about what, exactly?" Jessica jumped in. "Kathy, you have to understand, we've been seeing signs. Memory issues, confusion." "Such as?" "You forgot Emma's birthday. I called her at 7 in the morning and sang happy birthday. She told me herself." Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "What about leaving the stove on?" David tried desperately. "I haven't used the stove after dinner in 15 years. You know that." "The memory problems at work. You mean the ones you invented when you called Dr. Stone?" I kept my voice calm, conversational. "The cognitive decline you described that nobody at the clinic had ever witnessed?" David stood up abruptly. "Mom, I think you're getting paranoid. This is exactly what we were worried about." "Sit down, David." Something in my voice must have warned him. He sat. "I know about the second mortgage on your house," I said quietly. "I know about the $85,000 you owe. I know about the nursing home applications and the guardianship papers." The color drained from Jessica's face. "How could you possibly—" "Because people talk, Jessica. People who care about me. People who've watched you driving by my house taking pictures. People who've heard you asking about property values." David's mask finally slipped. "Mom, you don't understand. We're trying to help you." "Help me by stealing my house?" "It's not stealing," Jessica exploded. "You can't take care of yourself anymore. You're going to fall or forget to pay bills or inconveniently live too long and cost you money. That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about, Jessica?" She looked at David, panic in her eyes. He was staring at his plate, jaw clenched. "It's about making sure you're safe," David said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Safe from what? From living in my own house? From working at a job I loved? From seeing my grandchildren whenever I wanted? The kids are fine. The kids miss their grandmother. But you've been telling them I'm sick, haven't you? That seeing me confuses me?" David's silence was answer enough. I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop lying about my competency. You're going to stop interfering with my life. And you're going to let me see Emma and Tyler whenever I want." "Or what?" Jessica's voice was vicious now, all pretense gone. I smiled, thinking of the recording device in the sugar bowl, of James Mitchell waiting for my call, of my neighbors ready to testify. "Or you're going to find out exactly how competent I really am." Monday morning, James Mitchell's office felt different. Where last week there had been concern and careful planning, today there was the sharp energy of impending victory. "Kathy, this recording is perfect," he said, playing back Jessica's furious words. "They admitted to lying about your competency, confirmed they've been discussing your property, and Jessica essentially confessed to financial motivation." Dr. Patricia leaned forward in her chair. What's our next move? We go on the offensive. James spread several documents across his desk. I spent yesterday preparing a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services for elder abuse. But more importantly, I filed a restraining order against David and Jessica. A restraining order? They're prohibited from making any medical inquiries about you, from filing any legal documents on your behalf, and from interfering with your employment or housing. He smiled grimly. As of 1 hour ago, if they try to proceed with guardianship, they'll be in contempt of court. The relief was overwhelming. They can't touch me? Not legally. But we're not stopping there. James pulled out another folder. I also contacted the Pennsylvania Department of Aging about their fraudulent nursing home applications and the State Board of Medical Examiners about David's false claims regarding your mental health. State Board? Dr. Patricia explained. Making false claims about someone's medical condition to influence their treatment or employment is a serious offense. David could face charges. What about Jessica's real estate activities? That's the beautiful part, James said. Taking photographs of someone's property without permission while discussing plans to sell it constitutes harassment and attempted fraud. The police are very interested in that pattern of behavior. My phone buzzed with a text message from David. Mom, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding. James read it over my shoulder and chuckled. Too late for misunderstandings. Another text. Please don't involve lawyers. We can work this out as a family. How should I respond? I asked. Don't. Let them sweat. Dr. Patricia's phone rang. She glanced at it and frowned. It's Dr. Stone. I should take this. Dr. Stone? This is Patricia. What? When? No, absolutely not. Because I have documentation of everything, that's why. She hung up and turned to us. David just called the clinic demanding they release your medical records to support his guardianship petition. What did Dr. Stone say? He told David that no such petition has been filed and that he's not authorized to receive your records anyway. Patricia's eyes gleamed. Then Dr. Stone asked David to explain his previous false statements about your competency. And? David hung up on him. James made notes rapidly. This keeps getting better. They're panicking, making mistakes. What's our timeline now? I asked. The restraining order is in effect immediately. The elder abuse investigation starts tomorrow, and... James paused dramatically. I've arranged for Emma and Tyler to be interviewed by a family advocate this afternoon. Interviewed? Standard procedure when there are custody or guardianship concerns involving minors. They'll be asked about their grandmother's competency, their relationship with you, and whether they've witnessed any concerning behavior. I thought about Emma's fierce hug, Tyler's questions about why I never visited anymore. They'll tell the truth, I said confidently. I'm counting on it, because after tomorrow, David and Jessica will face a choice. Drop all claims against you and leave you alone, or face criminal charges for elder abuse and fraud. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jessica. Kathy, you're making a terrible mistake. We're your family. I showed the message to James. Perfect, he said, screenshotting it. Continued harassment after a restraining order. That's another violation. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not a confused old woman, not a burden to be managed, but Kathy Morrison, 69 years old, sharp as a tack, and fighting back. James, what are our chances? He leaned back in his chair with satisfaction. Kathy, it's not about chances anymore. It's about how completely we want to win. The call came Tuesday evening while I was watering Bobby's tomato plants. James Mitchell's voice was triumphant. Kathy, it's over. Over? Emma and Tyler's interviews were devastating for David's case. The family advocate described their testimony as unequivocal character witnesses for their grandmother's competency. I sank into Bobby's old garden chair. What did they say? Emma provided specific examples of your memory, your organizational skills, your emotional stability. Tyler, that kid is something else. He actually brought homework you'd helped him with, perfectly corrected and organized. Despite everything, I smiled. Tyler was always proud of his schoolwork. But here's the kicker, James continued. When asked if they'd ever witnessed concerning behavior from you, Emma said, "The only concerning behavior I've seen is my parents lying about my grandmother." She said that? Direct quote. And Tyler, when asked if he thought you needed special care, said, "Grandma Kathy takes better care of everyone else then anyone takes care of her. The tears came then, not from sadness, but from pure love for those brave children. There's more, Kathy. The Department of Aging completed their preliminary investigation. David's nursing home applications contained fraudulent medical information. He's facing charges. Charges? Elder abuse, filing false documents, and attempted fraud. Jessica's real estate activities are being investigated separately. Through the window, I could see David's car pulling into my driveway. He got out alone, shoulders slumped, looking like a man who'd lost everything. James, David's here. Don't let him in. The restraining order. He's my son, I said quietly. I need to hear what he has to say. David stood on my front porch, not trying to enter, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Through the screen door, he looked like the little boy who used to apologize for breaking windows with baseballs. Mom, I'm sorry. For what, specifically? For all of it. The lies, the clinic, the applications. His voice cracked. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? He leaned against the porch railing. We were drowning, Mom. The mortgage, Jessica's spending, my commission dropping. When I saw how much your house was worth, you decided I was expendable. No, I convinced myself you'd be happier at Millbrook, that you were lonely here, that maybe it would be better. David, stop. Just stop lying. He was quiet for a long moment. Jessica said it would be easy, that old people get confused anyway, that no one would question it. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her, because believing her meant I wasn't stealing from my own mother. He looked at me through the screen. I was stealing from my own mother. Yes, you were. The kids hate me now. Emma won't speak to me. Tyler asked me why I lied about you being sick. What did you tell him? The truth, that I made terrible choices because I was scared about money. David's shoulders shook. I lost my job today, my commission structure, the stress, the ethics investigation. My company let me go. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a deep sadness for the man my son had become. What happens now? He asked. Now you face the consequences of your choices. And maybe, if you're very lucky, you find a way to earn your children's respect back. David nodded slowly. I love you, Mom. I know I have no right to say that anymore, but I do. I love you too, David, but love doesn't excuse what you did to me. He walked back to his car without another word. 6 months later. I'm sitting in my kitchen, my own kitchen, in my own house, watching Emma help Tyler with his science project at the table where Bobby and I shared 40 years of meals. The morning sun streams through windows I never thought I'd see again, and my coffee tastes like victory. The phone rings. It's Dr. Patricia calling from the clinic. Kathy, I have news. Dr. Stone wants to offer you your job back. I laugh, surprising myself. Patricia, honey, that ship has sailed. But the patients miss you. Mrs. Henderson specifically requested. Tell Mrs. Henderson I'll see her at church on Sunday, but I'm not going back to that reception desk. Because I don't need to. The settlement from David and Jessica's elder abuse case was substantial. Not because I wanted to punish them, but because James Mitchell insisted that accountability meant financial consequences. Their fraudulent actions cost them $50,000 in damages, legal fees, and fines. More importantly, the mandatory counseling sessions are working. David comes by every other Thursday. Supervised visits at first, now gradually rebuilding trust. He's working at the hardware store, learning what honest work feels like again. Jessica moved back to her mother's house in Ohio. The divorce was final last month. Grandma, is this right? Tyler holds up his volcano model, carefully painted and labeled. Perfect, sweetheart. Your teacher's going to love it. Emma looks up from her geometry homework. Grandma, can you check this problem? I review her work. She's gotten every angle correct. You're brilliant, Em. I get it from you, she says matter-of-factly. These children are here every day after school now. They chose to live with me rather than follow Jessica to Ohio. The family court judge, after reviewing their interviews and the case evidence, agreed that staying with their competent, loving grandmother was in their best interests. I'm not just their grandmother anymore. I'm their guardian, their safe place, their home. The front door opens and Harold Bishop walks in carrying grocery bags. At 67, he's everything Bobby was, steady, kind, patient with teenagers. We're not married. We're too old for such formalities. But we're companions, partners in this new phase of life. How did the college tour go? He asks Emma. Amazing. Penn State has the perfect engineering program. She grins. And their financial aid office was very impressed with Grandma's college fund contributions. That's my secret weapon now. Instead of hoarding money out of fear, I'm investing in futures. Emma's engineering dreams, Tyler's art supplies, the community center's senior programs. Money is a tool, not a treasure to be stolen. Maggie Kelly arrives for dinner, as she does every Tuesday. At 73, she's appointed herself my advisor on everything from investments to dating. Linda Washington follows, carrying her famous cornbread and the latest church gossip. Kathy, Linda announces, the Methodist Women's League wants you to lead the new seniors advocacy group. What kind of advocacy? Elder abuse prevention, teaching families how to spot the warning signs, helping seniors protect their assets and independence. I consider this. 6 months ago, I was the victim. Today, I could be the voice that helps others avoid what I went through. I'll do it, I decide. But we're not just talking about protection. We're talking about empowerment. Because that's what I learned through this nightmare. My scars, the betrayal, the fear, the near loss of everything I valued, didn't weaken me. They revealed strength I never knew I possessed. Harold squeezes my shoulder as he sets down the groceries. Proud of you, he murmurs. At 69, I'm not the woman I was a year ago. That woman was passive, accepting, grateful for whatever crumbs her family offered. This woman, the one who fought back, who demanded justice, who chose her real family over her biological one, this woman is dangerous in the best possible way. Emma looks up from her homework. Grandma, I have to write an essay about someone I admire. Can I write about you? What would you say? That you taught me that being kind doesn't mean being weak, that you can love someone and still hold them accountable, that scars don't make you broken, they make you wise. I look around my kitchen table, Tyler focused on his volcano, Emma planning her future, Harold reading his paper, Maggie and Linda debating community politics. This is my family now. Not the one I was born into, but the one I chose and earned. My scars became my wisdom. My pain became my power. My worst experience became my greatest teacher. And I wouldn't trade any of it for the naive woman I used to be. Some stories end with revenge. This one ends with something better. Truth, justice, and the unshakable knowledge that I am exactly who I was meant to be. Strong, wise, unbreakable. Kathy Morrison, at 69, finally free.